In other words, instead of struggling against the academia in pointless confrontations, if you had spent your time reflecting on improving the quality of your shows and enlightening your audience.
Aggressive from the get-go. He's really putting on the pressure. Can Nilou stand her ground?
Objection!
In your eyes, our shows can't meet the academia's expectations. Shouldn't it be the audience who decides if a show is intellectual or enlightening? Why is someone from the academia judging that? Also, I believe that there is no such thing as a wiser or more enlightening performance.
Objection!
You can only reach that conclusion from a place of ignorance.
In that case, before passing judgment, you should first become a better dancer than me.
You tell them, Nilou.
Looks like he's backed himself into a corner.
Cease your futile resistance.
Yep, Nilou is pretty cool when you look at things that way, doesn't she? She's not the flashiest, she's not my favorite, but she may be deceptively more interesting than she looks. Before we begin, this video was planned to be released like 2 months ago. I've wanted to do this one for quite a while, but then life happened, and I got the virus, and I haven't been able to upload for a really long time because my vocal cords were just shot. So if you're still one of the OG followers, welcome back and thanks for sticking around. Hopefully by the time this is released, it'll be around the time of Nilou's rerun, so this video will end up being the most relevant that I could have possibly made it. Well then, let's begin. Okay, so at first glance, upon first thought of Nilou, she's not really the most impactful character. Not the most popular demo trailer, not the most screen time, not the most story focused in the Archon quest, and her personality is... well, she's nice and all, but we have plenty of characters with nice personalities. However, I like to overanalyze things. It's the reason why I even make these videos in the first place. And upon some deeper thought, there are some things I really like about her that I don't find much in most other characters. However, in order to understand how Nilou is different from most other characters, we must first understand how most characters are written in Genshin. Playable characters in Genshin Impact, at least from what I've seen, are not these radically evolving characters where they change according to what happens to them on screen. Plot developments in Genshin, and I mean namely the Archon quests and the story quests, they're not about the characters having a journey where they learn more things about themselves, change, and then evolve over time. Well, you could argue some do, but they usually develop very slowly and subtly. Like Xiao. Or they're characters who have had years of build-up before they became playable, like Scaramouche. Anyways, most of the time, those roles are typically reserved for NPCs because I could name so many NPCs that fill this role. There is a notable divide in character archetypes from NPCs to playable characters. Check out my video on NPCs for more on that topic. To put it simply, Nilou to me appears to be written more similarly to a really important NPC than a playable character. She, throughout the course of the Sumeru Archon quests and her own story quest, probably has the most surprising and substantial character development that doesn't typically follow the pattern for most characters. I mean, at least as of this recording. First, let's lay some groundwork for past characters and their respective story arcs to show what I mean. You get a sense that in most of the story quests, they're not really about them. Venti's was mainly about Stanley and the fake Stanley, you know, identity crisis and all that. Zhongli's was about, well, first it was about Ajdaha, and then in part 1 it was about Wanyan and the story of Havria. Yelan's was about Zhiyi. Tignari's was about Karkata. Kazua's was about the story of the cursed sword and of his ancestor that created it. And Ayato's was about Kujo Kamaji and Hiragi Chisato and their character development surrounding the marriage plot. Ito's was about the internal struggles of Takuya, and, well, you get the idea. For pretty much most of these story quests in Genshin, the plot doesn't really revolve around them. It's not really their story being told through it. A lot of these characters develop somebody else's conflict, and as a result, most of them tend to stay the same. Now, there are a few notable exceptions to this I'll get to in a moment, but for now, this to me seems to be the trend for a vast majority of character quests. Okay, to be fair, Nilou's story quest doesn't necessarily break the pattern of the plot being driven by an NPC. However, in terms of character development and doing something that seems outside the scope of her personality, Nilou really feels like she unlocked a new gear to herself, similar to how Raman changed into a new person in Act 4, or how Isak pulled off that Nehida disguise. She changed in a major way in this quest, and you know what? It was a very cool moment. If you played it in isolation, it's already good as a standalone story. But if you were to take it within the context of everything she experienced before this point, with the Samsara arc and the insurrection of Act 5, depending on the order in which you played them, she has really come a long way since being intimidated by Grand Sage Azar. I mean, at this point, you already know what I'm talking about. It's literally in the thumbnail. Nilou has always come off as a soft-spoken, mild-mannered, and gentle individual. She's not naturally fearless like Cyno, not hyper-intelligent and composed and daring like Alhaitham, not a hardened warrior like Dia or Candice. She's always felt relatively normal compared to the others. When the Grand Sage shut down her performance, she just had an air of defeat and hopelessness about her. Ultimately, with the Traveler's help, she learned she had all the power because she was in her own dream. At this point, you could take this kind of personally, you know? The Samsara looped 168 times, and Nilou was arguably the Sage's chosen test subject. If I were Nilou, I would be holding a grudge. But anyways. So in Sumeru Act 5, Nilou gets told the plan to overthrow the Academia. She's going to dance in front of the Academia gates, she's going to create an opportunity to smuggle misinformation into the Akasha, and then she's going to not be arrested. That's a huge risk, and we didn't get the full scope of it, but given her reaction initially the day before, it must have taken a great deal of courage to pull it off. Of course, if you played Nilou's quest before Act 5, the events of her quest would be the reason why she felt so comfortable and confident in her dance at the Academia gates. If you played Nilou's quest after Act 5, then being a part of Alhaitham's plan and knowing you once succeeded thanks to your belief in yourself ultimately pushed Nilou to become the champion of Zubair Theater and go directly against Sharif in a formal debate. Just going to a place and dancing with trust in your teammates is one thing, but being asked to carry your team and to do something out of your comfort zone that you're not traditionally good at.
Me? No. I'm the literal worst at arguments. I can't debate.
Trying to best the Academia in a debate is attempting the impossible.
That is really impressive. Like, I can't stress this part enough. First off, being able to debate somebody with such high stakes and against someone so overwhelmingly skilled while you have little experience is already nerve-wracking. This is a point that is often taken for granted throughout Sumeru. In Act 1, we had the Master of Speech, Alhaitham, absolutely destroy those Ain El Amar Eremites with just pure words and intimidation. Then we had Alhaitham and Cyno talk through their tensions. Then we had the drama with Raman and Dia's secret meeting. The entire saga of Sumeru is flooded with confident and articulate speakers. Even debates are a popular activity among scholars. It's a cultural practice. Being able to debate well is probably a sign of high-functioning intelligence, which is obviously glorified in Sumeru. That just makes Nilou's struggle all the more impactful. Because most people aren't like Alhaitham or Cyno, a lot of people would have a difficult time in that situation. What makes Nilou's arc so special is that her journey to the debate embodies that struggle. You even play as her and are challenged to come up with the answers yourself, which immerses you in that challenge and connects her state of mind with your own. That wouldn't have worked for someone like Al-Haytham, who would hardly struggle in such a situation. There was plenty of build-up too. Nilou needed to talk to all her theater members, gather as much information and collect as many points not knowing what we're up against. And then there's the nervousness of anticipation, learning the stakes and who you're speaking for, the emotional factor with it being Inaya's father. Like, this was just as much Nilou's story as it was Inaya's. It explores such a relatable, humbling human struggle that a vast majority of all people could intuitively understand. And myself playing through that quest, I couldn't help but feel incredibly proud of Nilou for going that far. She wasn't a perfect debater and made a few mistakes along the way, but she didn't crack. She didn't give in. This isn't Nilou's existing character being fleshed out. This is Nilou breaking new ground and achieving new heights she's never been shown to reach before. This is why Nilou's story quest was a special one for me, and why she's a special character. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there are other characters that have stories specifically focused on themselves. Jean learned the importance of taking care of herself and being proud of her own achievements. Xiao's series of quests focused on overcoming tragedies of the past and finding a place to belong in the present. Ayaka's character development was... I mean, it's Ayaka. If you played that quest, then you know. And then there's Raiden. Raiden's story, indeed, it's one of the bigger ones. And then there's Scaramouche/Wanderer, who changed completely. Obviously, former villains will get a lot of character focus, so Nilou, in contrast, was a good character that wasn't expected to develop. She never needed to develop. Even then, it was still one of the most memorable ones. This is significant to me because it just came out of nowhere. If you couldn't tell, I really like when the quests do this. There's a time and place to develop NPCs. As a matter of fact, I loved Yelan's story quest purely because of how great of a character Juri is. But we really need more quests like Nilou. At least, I need more quests like Nilou. And that's the end of this video. Leave a like and comment if you want me to do more character-focused videos like this, or if you want to see more meme edits. Y'all thought Yanfei was the only Ace Attorney reference in the game. Anyways. And of course, we are finally back from our 2-month absence. I look forward to uploading more soon, and hopefully more consistently this time. And as always, until next time.